O'Keefe. Recently I went for a bit of a walk along the Yarra River in the suburbs, so I don't live that far from it, and I like to actually walk along to see if I can find any fish activity and likely looking spots. I fish it quite a bit actually because it's close to home, it's only a couple of minutes drive and I can be there. So it's really great, especially in summer evenings, to get down there and if you want to get a couple of hours in before it gets dark. So I was on one of my regular walks where I actually just check out different spots, and because of course things change, conditions change each season. If you get heavy rains and a lot of water flowing through, what it can do is actually it changes the structure of things. It'll move a big log somewhere or trees fall down. In fact, one spot just recently, a tree had fallen in and created a bit of a barrier to the water. So the water actually changed a little bit of direction to get round it. All of a sudden, on the other side of that, it created a slow point, quite deep, but an area where the water wasn't moving that fast. Now that happened in one season, so that was a new fishing spot for me and it was quite easy to get to. So that's the reason I go for these walks. But as I was walking this time, I saw an angler there, an older guy. He turned out to be a Russian guy, Sergey. Now, Sergey was fishing. Now I just went down to say hello, had a chat about what he was fishing. He had a couple of very large carp there, which he was going to take home to eat. And his target was carp. So this video is not about carp, it's about catching fish. But it all started with the target fish being carp. So Sergey, who's Russian, who's come to Australia about 10 years ago, but spent most of his life in Russia, would fish over there in some of the big lakes there, and they used a very, very unique bait. I hadn't seen this before. There were two things about it. One, it was very, very unique. The other thing was the way you put it on the hook is really unique as well. But it was one of those baits that you can add any scent or flavour to. And I think the applications of this are enormous. In other words, the number of fish you can catch with this could be really, really big. Now, Sergey came from the, I think I've got this right, Krasnoyarsk region in Russia, where there were some big lakes. Sergey, if you're listening to this, I apologise if I got that wrong, but that's as I understand it, where he came from and where he fished. And one of the very popular baits they use is this stuff, semolina. Okay, now it's a wheat-based product, but it's not flour. And there's a really strong reason for it being a good bait, different to making a dough, because the way that he was using it was not like a dough where you actually mold it onto the hook, although you can do that apparently. There's another way of doing that which he showed me, which I'll talk about later. But what he would use to apply that to the hook, of all things, was this. He had a syringe. So I bought this one. It's about the same size as the one he had. And what you do is you make up the dough, put it into here, and then you squeeze it onto, or you wrap it round the hook. So I had a couple of experiments with this. It took a little while to get the formula right, but what really got me stoked about the whole thing was that I took it out just down where Sergey had been fishing a couple of weeks earlier. I went down there one night after work. I didn't have much time at all, and to tell you the truth, I wasn't sure whether I was going to get anything anyway. But I cast in, I did put a bit of burley into the area, but I cast in to a spot, and about 20 minutes later, I got a carp. And I mixed something in with it. Sergey, his ingredients was quite a bit different to mine, but I tried something else. As it turned out, I just put a little bit of fish sauce in there, because I thought maybe if there's any other types of fish around, if there's a redfin in there, possibly a trout, unlikely but possibly, or even some of the Australian natives, because I know that there's been perch of different types down there. I might hook one of those. But I got the most common fish, I got a carp. But I was very happy that it worked, and in a fairly short space of time. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how I made mine up and how I use it. And I'm also going to show you what Sergey used in his, which is a bit of a mind-blowing ingredient, and it's still got fish, so who knows? Anyway, this is what you do. Now the ingredients you'll need, obviously semolina, you can get that from a supermarket. It's pretty cheap stuff, and this is a 500 gram bag, so that'll make up quite a bit. So all you're going to need at the moment is your semolina, a glass to mix it in, some water and a spoon. And then what you're going to do is put it into the syringe. The first thing is you want to put just enough that you're going to use. And because the syringe is quite small, you don't need a lot in there. And I was quite surprised at how many baits he got out of a syringe of this size. So you don't need a huge amount. Anyway, so we'll put this in. So I've done this a couple of times, but Sergey, he was pretty professional at it and did it pretty quickly, even though he was showing me. The next part you do is just add the water. Now, you've got to add just enough water so that you can get this mixed through, probably a little bit like porridge to start with. Okay, so, and you've got to mix it very thoroughly. The thorough mixing is really essential, so it's just, okay. Now, I might have just added a bit too much then, but what you've got to do is, this will continue to absorb the water, but the big thing is you've got to mix it up first, so it's got to be fully mixed. And as you can see, now that I've put water in there, the amount of that stuff is a lot more than will be needed to fill in here. And the thing is that once it actually gets to its right consistency, and you start using it, the rest is thrown away. It's not the type of thing that keeps. But what I was amazed at is, unlike, say, something like dough as you make that up, it basically keeps quite a, how would I describe it? It's sort of like a rubbery consistency to it. And so what I'm going to do is, after mixing this through, the important thing is just to mix this through, okay, so that you know that there is no dry stuff left and it has been thoroughly kneaded, like you're doing with bread or dough, but you've got all of the water thoroughly mixed through. Okay, what you can do is then leave that for just a couple of minutes. Okay, so I feel like that now has absorbed all of the moisture. I'm going to leave that now for a couple of minutes. Okay, it'll actually absorb more of that. It'll get a little tiny bit rubbery, and then there's the next actions you need to take. Okay, that's getting there. That's really getting right. In fact, as I wrap that round, you can see it comes out almost as the whole thing pulls out of this glass jar. So you want it to be sticky enough like that, because then you know that it'll stick to anything you put it on. And according to Sergey, he can put it on, it'll last on the hook for about 20 minutes or so, even longer. So obviously, you know, once you've got it right, that works really well. Now, once you've actually got your bait, your semolina, to the consistency you want, and it's nice and rubbery, the way that you get it onto your syringe, or at least onto your hook, is through a syringe. Now, the syringe I showed you before. So, what you do is you take your syringe, pull the plunger out. Okay, you'll need that later. I mean, that's how you get it out of here. But the way you get it in here, it's really, really simple. So rather than trying to get a spoon and push it in and everything, you draw it up. So just push the syringe itself into the semolina and suck up. There you go. So it's in there. And then you can put the plunger in. And the great thing is, if you suck hard enough, you get to taste your bait. So once you've put that in there, then you have a way of actually putting that on your hook. And now the reason you don't try to draw it up by having the plunger down and sucking it into the syringe through the little hole is that if you make it rubbery enough, it's really quite hard to draw it up there, but it's so much easier to draw it through the larger hole, which is here.
So once you've done that, then you have got your bait ready to go, and every time you want to, you just apply it to the hook by squeezing this. It squeezes out a worm-like tube of semolina that can be wrapped around the hook. It works so well, and the great thing is it can be flavoured with practically anything, and that's where the real value of this thing lies.
Okay, so when you want to put this stuff on your hook, all you have to do is start to press it out. Okay, so that it just, and then start to, all you've got to do is make a connection first so it's got something to hook onto, and then just start rolling it round. Okay, so it's actually, it actually glues to itself quite well. So I'm using a size here hook, a size 8 hook, which I would use in the waters nearby. Now that is fairly typical of what I'd be using if I was going for some of the fish locally, because we get some of the small perch there. Obviously we get carp, we get, I don't know if eels would take this, but I think maybe if you had the right flavouring, maybe even they would do it. But if you had a larger hook and you were going for bigger fish, it's just a matter of putting more of this on and wrapping it around. So it's very, very, very easy to do. It just glues to itself. And it, I've seen it, according to Sergey, it can stay on for quite a while. So if you just do it properly, you can see it's very, very rubbery. What it does is it just then creates a scent in the water. Okay, this is really, I can't believe how sticky this stuff is. Okay, so it's now surrounding the hook completely, right up the shank. That there, with a strong enough scent, is going to attract fish into the area, especially if you use a bit of burley. So that is amazing. And I'm pretty excited about this because I think that with the right scents and that, just about any fish can be caught. The rubbery texture also might be better than dough because it's rubbery. It's a bit more like sort of the flesh of a fish or something live, rather than that sort of a soft, slightly gritty feeling in floured dough. So there you go. This could be something worth playing with. I'm certainly going to play with it because I'm thinking on a very small hook I could use this for garfish, a little tiny dollop on there for garfish. I could put it on hooks this size for bream and mullet. If I was in fresh water, it could pick up the well, certainly the carp, but there's other fish out there, roach, and maybe even some of the Australian natives would be interested if it had something like a yabby flavour or it had a worm flavour. So it's worth a shot.
So there you have it. Another bait that you can use that can have a wide variety of applications, and it is open to any type of scenting you like. But what blew me away is what Sergey used when he was fishing. Now, I couldn't believe what he sprayed onto his before he put it in the water, but it was this. Okay, he used WD-40 as his fish attractant with that stuff. Now, I've heard some pretty bizarre things before, and I've never understood why a fish would go for something like a garlic flavour, for instance, but a petroleum product? Anyway, he caught fish on this. Now, I did a little bit of research on WD-40. It is a petroleum product. There is nothing in there that should attract fish. But having said that, I know that some of the longliner fishermen, these are the guys that go out into the deep water that have the very, very, very long lines that have basically a dropper coming off every, sort of so many meters with a large hook and a large bait on it. They're looking for those big fish on anything from sort of tuna to shark that they catch. In the past, sea lice have actually hit those baits and devastated the bait, either made it look unpalatable or wiped out the bait and not left much behind. And we're talking about very large baits. I've heard stories that they would dip those in kerosene to stop the lice, but it didn't stop the fish. And I mean, after all, that was their livelihood, so they weren't going to do anything to jeopardize that. So they put on something that they knew would still allow the fish to come. However, as I understood it, that wasn't a fish attractant, that was just a sea lice repellent. But Sergey was convinced on this, and I believe he said this is a killer bait. I have to say, Sergey, I'm sorry, I don't recommend using this. It is a petroleum product. I don't think we should introduce that into the water. I don't think it's good for our fish to eat. You know, if fish get away with your bait, Australian natives, etc., this is not good for them. So I wouldn't recommend it, but I just thought I'd share that because it is quite amazing to see somebody using this. Anyway, there you have it. That bait, I think, is worth a lot. Now, I'll show you the picture of the fish that I caught. Unfortunately, it was only just that I could only take a picture. I didn't have any of my filming gear because I only had a short time to actually get down to the water after I'd spoken to Sergey, just to see if I could catch anything. But I will be fishing with it in the future, and I'll certainly post those videos. Anyway, if you like this, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe.